Starting a podcast has been a goal of mine for a while. But just the same as anyone wanting to start a project, I had excuses. Some valid, some not. And I don't know why this push to start felt so different, but it did. With this Halloween special coming to an end, I'm so excited to bring something different to our time together. And I hope you'll come back after Halloween to see what that's all going to be about. But what I really want to tell you before we get started today is thank you. Thank you for taking the time to follow along in any shape, way, or form. I'm Hope Costa. Welcome to Even Odder Podcast. In Halloween, a 6-year-old Michael Myers murders his older sister on Halloween night in the quiet town of Haddonfield, Illinois. Committed to a mental institution for the crime, he spends 15 years in silence under the watchful eye of Dr. Sam Loomis, who becomes convinced that Michael embodies pure evil. But on the eve of Halloween, Michael escapes and returns to his hometown with a white mask, wielding a kitchen knife. Responsible teenager Laurie Strode spends Halloween Day babysitting, unaware that she's being watched by a masked stranger. As night falls, Michael begins his reign of terror, stalking Laurie and her friends, picking them off one by one. Michael's relentless pursuit of Laurie forces her into a terrifying game of survival, where her wits and courage are her only defenses against the unstoppable killer. The intro to Halloween is so hype. I don't think there's another word for it. And I don't know if that's just because I've been headbanging to the Halloween theme all month long, or what. John Carpenter actually composed and performed the entire score for Halloween, despite him publicly admitting that he had no music knowledge at all. And it's absolutely fucking iconic. As is the rest of the movie, because John Carpenter is masterful in all things when it comes to Halloween. Not a second is wasted. Halloween is actually one of the most profitable independent films to ever be made. With just a $300,000 budget, the film grossed $47 million at the box office, which by inflationary measures would have been more like $150 million in 2008. And God, who knows now? My point here is that while Halloween and its simple premise could have easily just been another tossed away horror film of the 70s, thanks to Carpenter's direction, incredible shots, infamous killer, and again, absolutely fucking iconic score, it became the cultural phenomenon that would not only be responsible for redefining the slasher genre, but also having an influence on films beyond horror for almost half a century to follow. Halloween has been criticized for some bad performances, specifically that of the other young teenagers Laurie spends her time with, but hear me out, I want to defend that. I believe Nancy Kyce's performance as Annie receives the most criticism, and I think it's because she has this exaggerated, whiny voice that she speaks in throughout the film. It's been made fun of plenty. However, to the film's credit, Annie is a teenager, and I don't doubt that for 1 second while watching this movie. This film also has a lot of passive scenes as opposed to active ones. The characters are just walking home from school. They are just babysitting. They're watching scary movies on Halloween. And without Michael Myers, this probably would have just been any other night. And I think that those who have had criticisms are missing the fact that these are bratty teenagers, who, against Jamie Lee Curtis, were kind of supposed to be rooting to die for. No? Is that just me? Well, let's end on a positive. I am obsessed with this one scene from Halloween. It's this moment between Annie and Lindsay. Annie's walking around the house while a young Lindsay watching scary movies exclaims that she's scared. Annie then asks the obvious question to Lindsay, "Why are you sitting here with all the lights off?" To which Lindsay simply responds, "I don't know." It's just such a fun meta way to connect with the audience at that point. With all the tension rising and Michael about to make his first strike, you're just sitting there as an audience member like, why am I sitting here with all these lights off? One more thing. There's this moment in Halloween where we see the title card for 1951's The Thing, which I think is super nifty considering John Carpenter would go on to direct his classic remake of The Thing just a few years later. Halloween gets 10 out of 10 carved up pumpkins. Tuesday. In Haunt, a group of college friends celebrate Halloween night by searching for a thrill-worthy experience. They stumble into a mysterious haunted house on the outskirts of town. Drawn in by the promise of extreme frights and its eerie abandoned location, they enter the attraction initially brushing off the strange behavior of the masked staff as part of the show. But as they advance through each room, the group quickly realizes this haunt is more than it seems. The setup seems disturbingly real, and they begin to suspect that the haunt's performers have lethal intentions. As they navigate twisted rooms filled with gruesome obstacles and increasingly dangerous challenges, they face the horror that they may not be allowed to leave. Harper and her friends must confront their deepest fears, outwit each trap, and stay a step ahead of their relentless pursuers, just hoping to make it out alive. I told you last time that I've been recommending Haunt for years. What I didn't tell you is I've always been met with a scathing response in return. And you know, maybe my recommendation is where I've gone wrong. Because Haunt, like most movies, is best without expectations. The first time I watched this was during COVID, and I was definitely anxious for a new scary movie, which may have positively jaded my opinion the first time I watched this, but with each rewatch, I am so convinced otherwise, because this movie is fun. Haunt is produced by Eli Roth and directed by the writers of A Quiet Place. This movie's premise and creators just scream that it's a good time. The shots in this film are incredible. They do such a great job of putting you into that haunted house setting. I'm not the biggest fan of the opening scene in this movie, but that's probably because it's the slowest part. Despite that slightly off pacing at the beginning, there's a lot done to connect us with the main character, Harper, and to subsequently move the story forward. Especially because after that point, the pace is great, and the story doesn't really come back to a lot of low, passive points. Keeps going, just the same way you would have to if you were moving through a haunted house. And for that, it's incredibly effective. There's some questionable decisions made by characters throughout this movie that should definitely know better, like walking headfirst into a trap that your crew set up, or still waiting on your friends after all this crazy shit has gone down. Props for loyalty. Oh, and as someone who's been the first person to willingly jump into a coffin in an escape room, this movie has definitely helped challenge my future decision making, especially as I go out tonight. Be safe. Haunt gets a single 8 out of 10 review on Yelp.
Oh, but it says the proceeds go to Red Cross, so that's cool.
Wednesday. In Hocus Pocus, teenager Max Dennison accidentally brings back the Sanderson sisters by lighting the black flame candle on Halloween. The mischievous witches Winifred, Sarah, and Mary return, determined to steal the lives of Salem's young children to stay young forever. With the help of his sister Danny, his crush Allison, and an immortal talking cat named Binks, Max must stop the witches before sunrise to break the curse for good. Honestly, I don't have much to say about Hocus Pocus. It might just be one of the most perfect Halloween movies ever. The cast, the setting, the scenes, everything about it feels like pure Halloween. And how did I not realize Kenny Ortega directed it? He's behind some of Disney's best. This month, I've covered a lot of great but intimidating movies, and Hocus Pocus has its own legacy. It's kind of famously disliked by critics who apparently lack some Halloween spirit, but I've loved it for as long as I can remember. It feels like an essential part of Halloween tradition, and it's hard for me to find anything to dislike about it. It's not my all-time favorite movie, but that's part of the charm. It's a Halloween movie. Fun, magical, and unforgettable. Hocus Pocus gets 8 out of 10 lit black candles. Because it's a classic.
I ain't lying.
Thursday. Happy Halloween! This is something a little different than the usual format. Because, well, as much as I've loved cramming 7 movie reviews into almost every week of October, I really don't want to do 9 movie reviews in half a week. Especially when those reviews include 2 of the most iconic horror franchises ever. And hello, I have Halloween plans to get to. So for now, a mix-up. I found an article earlier this month that ranked all of the Scream movies, 1 through 6, according to the Rotten Tomatoes score. They are as followed. Scream 2 with an 81%, Scream with a 78%, Scream 6 with a 77%, Scream 5 with a 76%, Scream 4 with a 60%, and finally Scream 3 with a 41%. I have a bit of a vendetta against Rotten Tomatoes, and maybe, just maybe, I saw this as a challenge. I had a sort of default, not really thinking about it, ranking of the Scream movies, but I couldn't just give you that now, could I? So you already know I've got some ranking categories for you. I made a chart using these 6 categories that we're going to talk about to determine my ultimate ranking of the Scream movies. Warning, full spoilers ahead.
Let's get this Snapathon started!
First up, we've got Best First Girl, highlighting the most unforgettable opening kill scene. We've got some great contenders here. Kelly Rutherford, Amy Teagarden, and of course, my girl, Samara Weaving. Jada Pinkett even, but only because I want to see her get entangled with a knife. Ultimately though, the best first girl is, and always will be, Drew Barrymore. Of course, Scream is the king of subverting expectations, and Drew Barrymore being murdered in the beginning of this movie was the last thing people expected when this film came out.
Did you really put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard that they found her liver in the mailbox next to her spleen and her pancreas.
Up next, we have Ghostface MVP, crowning the movie with the most compelling Ghostface. Obviously, Billy and Stu are great Ghostfaces to begin the series with, but I'm pretty partial to the first Ghostface myself. Hope, what do you mean? You just said Billy and Stu start the series. Well, let me remind you of a certain menace.
Roman Bridger, director. And brother.
Roman Bridger is by far the most menacing of all the Ghostfaces. He does some diabolical-ass shit. He blows up a house with a person in it, he dresses up as their dead mom and shit, and he's the only one to accomplish his murders alone. I love the revenge plot, and overall, I think it does a great job to finish the original Scream trilogy. On to our third category, twists that cut deep. The most jaw-dropping twist that took everyone by surprise. I wrestled with this one because there's obviously quite a few when it comes to this franchise, but I landed on the most recent installment, Scream 6. Ghostface was fucking badass in this Scream. And though I could go into a rabbit hole about why that's not Ghostface at all, I'll leave that at the door. For a movie that truly kept me guessing. You know, we're 6 movies in, and they still had new tricks up their sleeve. But I would like to give runner-up to Scream 2's reveal of
Billy's mother!
Now we've got Randy's Rules, celebrating the funniest or smartest moments where Randy explains the rules of horror. Randy's explanation of the quote-unquote rules in the first one is absolutely iconic. I was recently having a conversation with a friend about this, and he nailed exactly why this scene is such a memorable, tension-filled moment in that first film. As audience members, we're already aware the killer is close, and as Randy begins to explain the rules of a horror movie,
Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
we see Sydney quite literally breaking those rules, and you just want to yell at the screen to stop. So thanks, Buck, for an excellent point. But as much as I love that moment, and the one I'm about to pick would be nothing without it, I have to pick Randy's surprise appearance in Scream 3, where he explains the rules of a horror franchise. Randy's death in Scream 2 hurts so much that just the glimpse of him in Scream 3 makes for one of my favorite moments in the franchise. And like I've said before, it's my podcast. The Running Scared Award for the best chase scene, where tension and suspense are at an all-time high in the series, has to go to one of my favorite 90s sweethearts, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Scream already plays on this joke about girls running up the stairs as opposed to out the front door, and I absolutely love the callback made in Scream 2, where we see what Sydney describes as horror movies happen. It's hilarious and brutal all at the same time. Is anyone questioning my sanity yet? For our final category, we're talking survival smarts, honoring the character who used the wittiest, most unexpected tactic to survive Ghostface's attacks. And for this, it's gotta be Sydney.
Need that. And Sydney.
When she's first contacted by Ghostface, she's so unserious, despite the fact that 2 of her classmates are literally dead that morning. She's out there gagging him like,
Huh? What am I doing? Hello?
The way her brain so quickly jumps into survival mode during that moment is probably one of the best moments of the whole franchise. Of course, the door thing had already been established in an earlier scene, but I love how it's used here, and have always longed for a closet to function in such a way. Her throwing everything that she can, the use of her computer to call 911, her immediate suspicion of Billy when he arrives, is why she's the ultimate final girl. Those survival smarts are unbeatable. Come on, Hope, what is your ranking?
Shut the fuck up already!
Well, I ranked these 6 different movies across 6 different categories. And if it's a numbers game, here are the results. For number 1, Scream. Of course. Number 2, Scream 3. 3, Scream 2. 4, Scream 6. 5, Scream 5. And finally, Scream 4. Honestly, the only one I would probably dispute is Scream 2 and Scream 3. I think those two should be reversed. Mainly because of Timothy Oliphant and Jerry O'Connell. But fair is fair. Again, happy Halloween, you guys. It has truly been a splendid month. Also, just a heads up, I think I'm going to take a break for this weekend on an episode, but I also think I have a surprise in store for you next week. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining me for Halloween with Hope. As we close the chapter on this spooky season, I hope you found some new favorites, rekindled some old ones, and, of course, that you are even odder than you were before. Remember, the spirit of Halloween lives on all year round, so stay safe, stay spooky, and I can't wait to see you next time for more film fun. Happy haunting!